Sienna J. Brown.
Hi, Hunter. And I
Yours.
was listening in to the last talk, and I was like, I love hearing Hunter as a speaker, as an MC. I'm always super grateful to be in the room with you.
The best to be in the room with you. So, we're going to talk about reimagining our careers, the power
Mm.
of transferable skills. Now, this is such a hot topic, and we couldn't have a better person to be sharing this with us. So, a little bit about Sienna before we jump in. So, Sienna is our head of growth here at Power to Fly, which is so awesome. And we're going to take our professional journeys to the next level here. We're going to talk about transferable skills. We're going to discover how to identify your unique strengths and leverage them in different roles and industries. And whether you're looking to make a major career change or want to advance in your career positions, this is the chat for you. So, Sienna, welcome to your platform here. Woo!
Thank you, Hunter. And I'm just really excited about this conversation today. Welcome to all of you that are listening. As we go through, please drop your live questions in the chat. They'll get filtered to us. I'm wearing my MC hat as well, but drop your live questions. Also, really, as we talk about today's topic, I think it's something that's so timely and so important, especially as whether you're in a current role, whether you're thinking about changing careers, whether you're looking for a new job opportunity. I'm really excited to talk about a little bit more of the theory, but then also actionable steps and strategies that you can take to really be able to lean in and build the career that you want while also working through some of the limiting beliefs that we might have as well about skills, what we're capable of, and where we can move into with our next step.
Yes. So, let's level set here. First, how are you feeling?
A lot more present now that you asked me. I just took a deep breath, which is one of my transferable skills, slowing down, being present. But I'm doing really well. It's 5:34 over here in Spain, and it's been a really good, productive day. And summit days are my favorite days, especially when we're talking about good topics like this.
Awesome. What are transferable skills and how can professionals identify the ones that they already have?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think as we think and talk about skills today, I also want to encourage you to all think about what is your story, right? Because oftentimes we get really caught up on, well, I don't have X years of experience, or I don't have X thing in my job title. And oftentimes we have more very useful skills and transferable skills no matter what you want to move into. So, transferable skills are basic definition abilities and competencies, which can be transferred across roles, across industries, and across career paths. And again, I think it's something that's so important because as we're seeing more of the integration in technology in the workplace, as we're seeing individuals needing to be adaptable both in the job market and in their current roles and companies as well, oftentimes when you're able to really showcase your zone of genius, your skills, all of the things that you have, it allows for you to be able to make your next career move with a little bit more ease. And it's actually, I love the topic of skills, and internally we've been working on this really exciting skills audit. Keep an eye out for the launch next month. But the thing that we really talk about is how are we able to not just identify the strengths, but then also recognize what are the skill gaps that you need to be able to reach your next career goal. And so that can be everything from technical skills, right? What's needed in your role, what's needed in the roles that you're looking for, business skills, which again goes into more of that transferable aspects of what does strategic thinking look like, innovation, achieving organizational objectives, but then also people skills, which is something that oftentimes we call them soft skills, but how do you relate with people? How do you gain buy-in? How do you communicate? How do you collaborate? And I think the trifecta of these three buckets is really what allows for us to be able to create a little bit more of a holistic picture of not just what are the skills that I have on my resume or in those 2 to 3 bullet points on LinkedIn or in your Power to Fly profile, but really being able to take a step back and say, what is my zone of genius? How can I integrate that in the workplace or in my job search? and going from there.
I love that. It's so important for us to feel confident in what we're saying. Because
Yeah.
for me, I struggled with imposter syndrome for a very long time. And now it's just gonna be like a little quiet voice in the back. I'm like, okay, slow your roll, girl. It's all fine. But it's because I hadn't done that for myself, what you're talking about. I hadn't done that internal audit of what are my strengths and where do I want to
Mm.
grow? What do I need to grow in? Because if I don't know what those are, then I can feel like a phony. But if I'm
Yeah.
really clear about, oh, this is a humbling space for me, I don't know this stuff. Who can I talk to? Sienna can teach me about blah, 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 blah. And
Right.
that's that I call you.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I
No,
did. You have.
but I mean, I think you're speaking on a topic that's so important because again, I'm sure I was like not as much now, right? It's a small little voice in regard to imposter syndrome, but I think so many of us struggle with that of am I capable? Am I worthy? Is this person better or worse? And I really want to encourage us a process that I think is really useful, right? Is doing, it seems very tedious, but I promise you it's worth it. Like looking back on all of your past experiences, right? And so, yes, within your career, but then also in regards to your personality and your personal life, your interests, right? Do you organize a book club? Do you work in your community? Do you host events? Great. You're probably really good at project management, right? You're probably really great at strategic partnerships. Are you currently, let's say, in a CSM role and you have a lot of different things that you handle on every given day? Time management, right? Again, project management, being able to really use some of the experiences that you have in across the board, right? Personal, professional, but then all of the different iterations within that and mapping it out, right? And so really getting creative and saying, okay, in this role, these are all of the things that I did. These are all of the skills that I've learned in this role, etc. And start looking for some of the overlaps, right? So if I can say, hey, I'm really great at operational efficiency. I did it in a lot of different ways in my past. Amazing. How can I now position that in my skills story as I move forward as something that's a strength or a zone of genius, although it might not seem like it when we're kind of in panic mode trying to apply for a job and we don't know what skills to share. You know what I mean?
I love skills story. That just gave me goosebumps.
Right.
So good.
I was like, I'm my own beta test because I think it's something, and we'll talk about this later today, but I've used so much in my own career journey because if someone were to look on LinkedIn, they would say, what does this woman do? She's been in so many industries, she's held so many roles and so many different titles, but it really goes back to that skill story of although you might not think at first glance your past experience might set you up for what you want next, it's also really thinking about how are you being future minded with your skill story as well. So not just what have you done, but where do you want to be going and then how can you transfer those skills to start sharing a different story.
Yeah, I love that. How do folks do that, especially when they're switching jobs or industries or roles? I find it
Yeah.
can be difficult to sum it up in just a couple of words on a resume. How do I communicate that I would be a great fit for something in such a small amount of text space?
I love this. And speaking to the AI expert, keep me honest with my answer here, right? But I think it's, again, how do we use technology to support our personal genius, right? And using those two things together. And so going back to that skill story, really thinking about all of your past roles, what was that bigger impact, right? Not just what are the skills you have, but what is the impact that you were able to drive with those skills? So let's say I said operational excellence, right? With that operational excellence that allowed for me to streamline our processes to create 30, I'm making this up, right? But like 35% more efficiency within our team or create a database, you know? And so I think really not just looking at the skills story and what you did in your role, but also what is the impact that that had. And then also really using the platforms to also share that story for you. Because whether you are on LinkedIn adding in your skills or on Power to Fly, if you haven't already, complete your profile at Power to Fly and add in your skills, because what you'll often find is that when hiring managers are looking for individuals, we're moving towards a time where it's not just what is your education and your past experience, but are you a skills match? Because a lot of companies are thinking about how can we bring individuals into our organization that won't just be able to impact their specific role, but the impact on their wider team, and not just that, the impact on the entire organization. So as you're going through some of these processes, again, positioning your story for where you want to be going. So technical, you have your skills map, you're doing a little bit of your audit, you're seeing, here's what I have, here's where I want to be going, aligned with impact. And then use OpenAI, use Claude, use whatever tool you're most familiar with to actually do the back and forth of, here's what I have. How would you summarize it? And what are the top skills that you believe are linked to this? Again, using it as a framework and then bringing your own brain into it as well. But another really key tip that I think is really important is looking at the job opportunities that you want to be moving into and making sure they match when relevant, right? So I'm currently head of growth. Let's say that I'm looking for a role in marketing and PR. Again, I'm making this up, right? But I'm looking for something in marketing and PR. I have a job description. I want to be reading and looking at that job description to say, what are the skills they value? What will my job and my role be there? And then as you're adapting your resume or your CV, if you're not adapting and customizing your resume and CV, I highly recommend that you do for each of the roles that you're looking for, right? How are you speaking their language with your skills as well? So really understanding not just your skill story, but what is the skill story that they're looking for? And then if there are some things that you might need to bridge the gap, great, you have learning and professional development opportunities, right? So be able to, again, endless plug, go to Power Up, our online learning and development platform, and upskill in things from data-driven storytelling to middle manager and leadership development to inclusive AI. The list goes on, but now that you know where you need to upskill, you'll then be able to take some time and dedication in your job search to also figure out how you're learning more about those skills, getting certificates, and being able to, yeah, like what you're saying, boost up your confidence through consistency so that you feel stronger when you go into that interview or you're in the room with the hiring manager, to be able to say, hey, I might not have the skill, but I'm open to grow and learn what's needed to be able to find or reach or take the skill. My brain was trying to think of what the right word was, but I don't know, just a little bit more of the actionable steps there.
Yeah, consistency is key. It's big. You got to get our reps in, right? Our
Yeah.
knowledge reps to
Yeah.
get that brain active and comfortable.
100%. I got excited. And the other thing that I would also recommend, and I know despite your personality, despite imposter syndrome or whatnot, start sharing more of your skills story and your impact on LinkedIn and on platforms, because oftentimes if you like, I love looking at Hunter's LinkedIn things coming up because I see his zone of genius, right? I'm able to see the topics that and the skills that he really leans into. So Hunter, you might be able to say, okay, well, I'm sure you know that you have public speaking skills, but I'm able to see that without him having to like tell me about it, because he's creating that career and professional story for what's happening now and then what you could be positioned for in the future as well.
Yeah. And to your point about sharing on LinkedIn or whatever platforms and being specific to the platform's communication style,
Exactly.
AI is a great helper with that. You can say, hey, I wrote this, do some research on best practices for reach on LinkedIn, and it'll adapt it. And then you, Sienna said, you want to go in there and massage it and make it more like you and not just this cookie cutter thing.
Exactly.
And the AI part also of job description, your key skills, give the AI both and it'll tell you.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, Hunter, this is going off of one of the questions we just got in the chat. I'm wearing too many hats, but one of the questions we just got in the chat that I think speaks specifically to what Hunter just said. AI is not the end all be all. It is a way to make a process more efficient. So by no means am I recommending you only use AI, but what I am recommending is you have to do the hard work first of identifying what your skills are based on your past experience and then being able to use that to elevate it. But then always bringing it back to you and saying, what is my voice? Is this true? What is actually aligned with my experience so that again, you're using technology to support you being able to move through your job hunting or your job search, but never having that be a copy paste and you send out to all different companies, right? So again, the consistency of the practice, it gets easier. And then hopefully, once you feel really strong about your skills story, then you'll be able to say, okay, I can do this off the back of my head, like in a heartbeat, because you have the structure and the template that you need, but using it as a tool to be able to help with a little bit more of the holistic or longer processes that are needed to go through. Because I know all of y'all who are watching this are so experienced and you already have what you need for your next role in your organization if you're looking to make a career switch or if you're actively job hunting. And again, it's really being clear and practicing that story, right? So practice it with your partner, practice it with your parent, practice it with your kid, practice it with your dog, whatever that is, but starting to get really clear on, in 2 to 3 sentences, who are you and what is the value that you bring. And once you start practicing that in different iterations, it'll really allow for you to be able to say, oh, I'm really great at X, Y, and Z, and honing in on that for more impact.
Yeah. Yeah. AI is a brilliant research assistant intern, but you wouldn't have the intern lead the meeting.
Love that analogy.
I mean, maybe they'll get there at some point, but maybe not the first meeting, you know?
Exactly. I love it.
And, thinking about leveling up and if folks choose to use Power Up, what's
Mhm.
another great thing about AI is it can take you from level 1 to level 3 really quickly. But having that level 1 foundational knowledge, you can't get to 3 if you don't have 1.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we got some time left. We got about 10 minutes left. So that's great. So if you could transfer one of your quirky skills from your professional life to your career, what would it be and why?
Ooh, okay. So I don't know if it's quirky, but a person, but a personal skill that I think not only would I, but actually does really transfer to my career. So I've been living in Spain for the last 10 years, and something that I've learned moving from Brooklyn, New York to a small 700 person town in the mountains of Spain is sustainable and slow living, which transferably means I am extremely good at time and energy management. So that's actually something that in my leadership, in my work, in my role, it's become almost a part of my career brand, right? Of like, let's take the time to do things right. How do we make sure that we're taking care of ourselves? How do we take that extra time to do deep work to create really impactful results versus trying to do a million things at once? And so again, another example that I think is really interesting is from my personal life. I've been living in Spain for about 10 years. I already said that. But something that I've learned as well is cross cultural communication, how to work and navigate and lead across global cultures. And that's actually something that became central to the work that I was doing as our Senior Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, as we worked with global brands, as we were able to lead cross cultural communications, as we were able to really lean into that. But again, if I hadn't thought about my skill story, I would just say, but I live in Spain versus saying, hold on, I've hosted conferences and retreats and built brands that have to do with cross cultural integration. I've been able to navigate cultural immersion on a lot of different levels throughout the last decade. And so, again, thinking about our skills not only in our job titles and roles, but also from your personal life, from the values that you have, from the way that you choose to live your life as well. How can that really integrate into your personality, which is something that also shows up in the workplace just as much as your outputs do?
Yes, 100%. We got another great question from the chat here. Ashley asks, from what I'm seeing from today's employers, they're incredibly unwilling to look outside professional experience. Any tips on how to work with that better?
Mm, I love that. And out of compassion, that also may be a limiting belief, right? So I think there are a lot of companies out there who, I'm not saying that they're definitely focused on professional experiences, but I don't necessarily think that they're uninterested in your skills outside of your professional experiences. And so really similarly to the example that I had just shared with Hunter, technically, me living in Spain has nothing to do with my professional experience, quote unquote, but in reality, it does because it impacts the way that I lead remotely because I've been working remotely for over a decade. It impacts, again, cross cultural collaboration because I've worked in different markets from Europe to the US to outside of both places as well. And so, again, I think, Ashley, this goes back to understanding how it ties in, right? And so maybe, again, I'm saying like, this is a very random example. I'm into gardening lately, but let's say that you lead a gardening club. It's fine. We'll see where it goes. But let's say that you lead a gardening club and you have really great skills in your leadership and being able to organize across 50 different people, etc. You might not necessarily have that on your resume or on your LinkedIn, but it could be a really great example when you're in an interview, right? It could be really, and I'll use myself as an example, right? When I was actually interviewing to join Power to Fly, I was very clear on my skills story. The experience I had had previously wasn't necessarily in the industry that Power to Fly was, but it was all extremely relevant to the impact that I could have within the organization. And so again, it's thinking about how are you tying that into your story and thinking about, again, the different methods and formats of when and where we can be talking about our transferable skills and our impact, whether it's in your resume or CV, on your LinkedIn, and or in the actual interview process as well.
I was muted. I love that. And I love how, Sienna, you have the ability to lovingly reframe. It's one
A
of
great
your
transferable skill.
it's a superpower. We love to talk about superpowers at Power to Fly. It certainly is one because you do it to help people. You're not doing it to prove a point about what you know or your knowledge or any of that nonsense. You don't, you're like, if people don't want to listen to you, you're like, well, then go somewhere else. I don't care, like, unless they work for
Yeah.
you. But
But still, you know, but also like plus one, and I want to hone in on this. I appreciate you. I love being there with you, Hunter, because I think it's something that's so important, right? Of like when we're thinking about our superpower, the things that we do well, this might be if I'm speaking at a summit. This might be if I'm speaking with a direct report. This might be if I'm speaking with our CEO. This might be if I'm speaking with my grandmother, right? And I think, again, there are some things that we might see ties across the way we relate with other people that are also skills that can be really useful. And so just one other thing or tip that I just want to recommend that popped up as you were sharing, Hunter, is that ask the people around you. Ask your coworker or past coworkers, ask your friends and family, ask people that you often collaborate with. Hey, what are some of the skills that you believe that I have? It's a process that I did once where I sent out a survey, but I sent out a survey to a ton of different people just to be able to hear different insights because oftentimes we might not be able to recognize the skills that we have, but when we ask people, we'll see a lot of overlaps, and that can also help contribute to number one, imposter syndrome, and number two, in being able to say, what are other people seeing that I might not see that is actually a skill that allows for me to thrive or grow in my career and the work that you do?
yeah, because other people can see the beauty in us that we overlook all the time, or we just don't even realize that other people can't do what we do the way we do it.
Plus one, right? Our zone of genius. Oftentimes, when we have a zone of genius, we don't realize because it comes so naturally to us. So even think about it like this, right? And then we can go back to the questions. But what are the things that come really easily to you that might not come easily to other people? The things as you're going through your day or through your week or your month or whatnot that you're like, why doesn't this make sense to other people? Or I would do it this way, or why haven't we thought about this? You probably have some really impactful skills there that form a part of your zone of genius that you might not necessarily recognize because you view them to just be the norm. So I would definitely
Mhm.
recommend doing a little bit of a thought on that of like what comes really easily to you as well.
Yeah. So as we're
Mm.
wrapping up here, for your own personal Sienna Brown career superpowers, how does it save the day in your professional life, and what are they?
I love it. For me, it's intentional leadership, right? And intentional leadership is the second definition of intention is the healing process of a wound, which I love. And I think when we think about, yeah, it's really impactful. I know intention has become a buzzword, but when I say intention, it means also the healing process of a wound. And how can I lead with intention to be able to elevate and support those who I work with, those around me, myself? But I think that would almost be my superpower or the top transferable skill, which really allows for me to gain buy-in with others, understand what other people value, to be able to share the same story or impact in a way that really resonates with them. And then again, really thinking about how are we showing up through a lens of empowering ourselves in our careers, but then also empowering others along the way.
I love that. Sienna, we're just about at time. Anything you'd like to leave us with before we sign off this session?
Absolutely. I mean, I just want to encourage all of us, right? I think whether you're currently in your role and you want to be growing within your organization, you're making a career shift and or you're looking to find that next job, to really take time and sit with after the summit over this week, what is your skills story and your zone of genius? And start thinking about that through a lens of where do you want to be going in your career, not just where you've been. And trust that whether it happens this week, this month, or this year, or in 5 years, right? There'll be a journey to get there, but our career journeys are long, and really focusing on where do you want to be moving into and how can your skill story support that.
Brilliant. And we're also sharing Sienna's LinkedIn link so you can connect with her there. Always an absolute pleasure, Sienna. Thank you so much for making the time and coming. And I always learn something in all of our talks. I can't believe I get hired to do this. It's the low key secret is just I'm actually Power to Fly's like most avid student. I'm just taking in as much as I can. So thank you.
I appreciate you, Hunter, and you have the most amazing skills to be able to exceed in what you do. So I love sharing the room with you. Thank you to everyone who's watching today. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Please check out Power Up. I think it's a really great way to be able to elevate some of your skills, and you got this, whatever you have next in your career path. So thank you, Hunter, and enjoy the rest of the summit, everyone.
Thanks. See you later.
Bye.